Now, earlier this week, the Cakes by Lynn's Instagram page reached 100,000 followers, which is such a milestone. And I want to say a massive thank you to any of you that follow me over on my Instagram page. If you don't, you can find me at Cakes by Lynn's. But to celebrate, I thought it would be really fun this week to create an Instagram inspired cake. So I'm going to be showing you how you can create a cake with these really fun colours, not only on the outside, but I've also coloured the sponge on the inside. We've then got this really pretty metallic gold drip and these coloured swirls on the top. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is work on the layers of my sponge cake. So I've mixed up a batch of my vanilla sponge cake recipe and I've actually divided this into 5 separate bowls, and I'm going to be colouring each of these layers in the Instagram colours. So I'm just going to be using some gel colour, and I've just got the Colour Splash colours here. So I've got a sunflower yellow, an orange, a raspberry pink colour, a violet and also a navy blue. So I'm just starting with one of those bowls, and each of the bowls has around 240 grams of cake mixture. So I'm just mixing that colour through. Now the great thing about using gel colours is they're highly concentrated, so you don't need to add that much, and they don't actually add any liquid to your cake mixture. Now, when I colour my mixture blue to counteract that yellow in my cake mixture, as well as the blue, I'm also going to add in a small amount of the violet. So this is going to cancel out those yellow tones and give me a blue mixture rather than it looking a little bit green. Okay, so now all of my cake mixture has been coloured. I'm going to bake these in 5-inch cake tins. Now I only have 2 cake tins, so I'm just going to bake 2 layers at a time. And I've just filled my cake tins with parchment paper. In other videos you probably would have seen me use butter and flour around the side of my cake tins, but I don't want too much caramelization happening on the outside of my cake, so that we can keep as much colour as we can. So I've just added parchment paper around the side and also on the bottom. Okay, so all of the layers for my cake have been baked. Once they came out of the oven, I let them cool, wrapped them in cling film and just popped them in the fridge for a few hours just to help me when I level them off. Now, I think the most fun part about creating coloured sponge cakes is when you level them off. And when we reveal that, you get this amazing colour on the inside. Now, we do have a really small amount of caramelization around the outside. So I'm just going to go in and also trim this off. And I'm also going to do the same for the bottom. So as you can see, we've got this amazing pink coloured layer. And I'm going to do exactly the same for the other layers. So just by popping those cakes in the fridge for a few hours, it just helps firm it up when I trim that off. But when they do return back to room temperature, they will go back to being nice and soft and fluffy. So here we have the 5 coloured layers of sponge cake. Now I'm going to stack these and cover them in a thin crumb coat, just using some white buttercream. So all this is going to do is just lock in any of those loose crumbs on the outside of our cake, giving us a nice base in order to add our final layer of coloured buttercream. Now I will put links in the description below to all the recipes that I've used throughout today's video, including the recipe for the vanilla sponge cake and my vanilla buttercream. So now we've got our crumb coat around the outside. I'm going to pop this into the fridge just for that buttercream to firm up so that I can add the final layer around the outside. Okay, so once our chilled cake has come out of the fridge, I've actually coloured some of my American buttercream in the same colours to match the inside of the cake. So I'm going to start at the bottom, just using some of that yellow. Now, where those colours meet, I want more of an ombre effect than a distinctive stripe. So I'm just going in with my offset spatula, just mixing together where those colours join. So I'm just going in with my smoothing tool whilst I fill up any gaps in that buttercream, just smoothing that around to get this really fun ombre effect. Once I'm happy with the sides, I'm then going to go in on the top, just using my offset spatula, pulling from the outer edge into the center. I can then pop my cake in the fridge just for that buttercream to firm up so that we can add some more decoration. So I've had the cake chilling in the fridge for around 20 minutes just for that buttercream to firm up. I can now transfer it onto my cake board. So I've got an 8-inch masonite board, and this one just measures around 1 centimetre in height and is covered with this matte white finish. So I'm popping down a small amount of buttercream into the centre of that board just to hold my cake in place. The next thing I'm going to do is add a drip onto my cake, and I'm actually going to colour this in gold. For my drip, I'm going to be using some candy melts, and I've actually got some of the white deco melts, and these ones are by Fun Cakes. Now I'm going to melt these down in the microwave, first of all for around 30 seconds, and then intervals of around 15 seconds. I like to stop when there's still a few of those candy buttons left and just stir these through until they're all melted. With the deco melts, these tend to melt down a lot runnier than some of the other brands of candy melts. So for this drip, I only need to use these. If you are using another brand, you may want to add in a small amount of double cream, as if you were making a ganache. This is because the candy melts are a lot thicker. Now I will put a link to another video where I do use a different brand of candy melts that do come out a lot thicker, so you can watch me add in double cream to make a ganache to make the perfect drip consistency. Now, as well as my candy melts, I'm also going to be using some metallic luster dust, and this is the Glamorous Gold by Sweet Sticks. I've then got a fairly thin paintbrush and some dipping solution. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and melt down my candy buttons. As you can see, the deco melts are super runny. Now I want to add the drip onto my cake and then paint it gold. But so that the paint, when I'm adding it onto the drip, isn't super streaky, I want to give my drip a base color. So I'm going to take some of my luster dust, just add in a small amount. Now this isn't going to make the drip shimmer, but it is just going to give the white drip a golden base color. Before adding the drip onto your cake, you do want to make sure that your mixture has cooled down so it's not going to melt any of that buttercream. I also like to test my drip on the side of a glass. This way I can check that I'm happy with the drip before I add it onto the cake. Okay, so I'm going to bring back in my cake and just using a spoon, just drip that mixture down the side, leaving around 1 inch between my drips. Once you're happy with your drips, I'm then going to go over the top, just smoothing that mixture down. Now, the great thing about using candy melts on their own rather than using a ganache is that they do set quite quickly. So I'm just going to leave this cake for those drips to set before I paint them in gold. Now that drip is on the cake, I'm going to create an edible gold paint. So I'm going to add some of that Glamorous Gold luster dust to a paint tray and pop in some dipping solution. Now you want quite a thick paint. Once that drip has dried, I'm going to take my gold paint. Now as you can see, because we do have that colour, I've painted the front of my drip, and if there are any pieces that I've missed, you can't actually tell, but you don't have to get super close to the edge. And if you do have any areas where you do go onto the buttercream, just take a really thin, clean brush and just wipe that off. So by having that base colour underneath, it just makes it super easy to paint. On the top, I'm just using a slightly bigger brush, just going in with that gold paint. Now on the top of my cake, I want to add some swirls of buttercream. Now you may have seen me do this technique before, but I'm going to use a piece of cling film and I'm going to lay down buttercream that I've got left. So I just want to pop it down in stripes. So I'm trying to get them as neat as I can. Once that's all down, I'm going to pull that into a sausage shape for twisting the two ends. I've then got a piping bag and a 2D piping nozzle. So this is just a closed style piping tip. Trimming off the end of my cling film. I can then take that sausage of buttercream and just pop that inside my piping bag, just as far as it will go. And then once I squeeze on the bottom, all of that buttercream is going to start to come out. I've then brought back in my cake, and coming in around 1 inch, I'm gonna pipe a swirl. I can then move over slightly and do another one next to that one. On the top, I want to add a few gold sprinkles. So I've got this happy sprinkle mix called Vintage Gilding, and the gold is really similar. So I'm going to use some of the long strands and the little balls just on those swirls. To finish off my cake, I'm going to make a few shapes to add to the bottom. So first of all, I'm going to make the Instagram heart icon. So I've just cut out these little templates. I've got some red Saracino and some white Saracino modeling paste, or you can use fondant. So first of all, I'm just going to roll out the red until it's around 3 millimeters in thickness. I can then place on my template and using a craft knife. Now this is a great, very inexpensive way to create a template to cut a shape out for your cake. So you don't always need to have a custom cutter. I'm then going to use a little bit of that white, cut out the heart. I can then take a little bit of edible glue on the back and just stick that onto my plaque. Now for a little 100k plaque on the front, I'm going to use the frosting letter set by Sweet Stamp. So this just has letters and numbers that are around 1 centimeter in height each. And then lay these out, leaving space for the second 0. And then I've just got my Sweet Stamp pickup pad. I'm going to push those letters on and it creates a little stamp. So I'm just using the modeling paste in white. This is just a great way to add letters or numbers onto your cakes or to use them to create cake toppers. I'm going to use just a small round cutter, cut that out. I'm then going to mix up some more of that edible gold paint and just go in with a really tiny brush, painting inside those numbers. I'm then going to leave these to one side just to firm up slightly so that I can add them onto the cake. So I'm going to pop on just a little bit of buttercream onto the back. So here we have the Instagram inspired cake. Again, I want to say a massive thank you to any of you who follow me over on the Cakes by Lynn's Instagram page. And if you don't and you'd like to, then don't forget you can find me at Cakes by Lynn's. I really hope you'll be able to use some of these techniques that I've used on today's cake in your own cake decorating, whether it's creating fun buttercream colours on the outside of your cake, colouring your sponge cakes on the inside, or maybe adding a metallic gold drip. Now, if you have enjoyed the video, as always, please don't forget to give it a like. And if you'd like to see more videos like this and you haven't already, then don't forget you can subscribe to the Cakes by Lynn's YouTube channel. You can also hit that notification bell next to the subscribe button, and this will just alert you every time I upload a new video. So until next time, bye!